later wild cows, and then later other animals. And so what I believe is that change, that was a revolution. That was the last revolution this culture ever experienced. There have been no revolutions since then. The so-called industrial and scientific, these revolutions were not revolutions. We can kill and eat more animals now than ever before. It didn't change the underlying thing that changed when we had this revolution in this culture in the Eastern Mediterranean. And it was a very slow revolution. It took thousands of years. It did not happen overnight. It took many generations. But by the time the historic period emerged, and we have the first writings, and I used to teach college courses in these subjects. I used to teach the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Iliad and the Odyssey, the Old Testament writings. You just look at the culture. It's basically defined by owning animals for food. What happened in this revolution, briefly, was that as we started owning animals for food as property, our whole relationship with nature changed. Because when you own something, you reduce it. It's reduced from being, animals were mysterious, powerful cohabitants of the world with us. And when they became property, they became despicable. Today there's nothing worse you can say than say, you pig, you cow, you turkey, chicken. So we reduce them so that we can harm them without feeling bad. So they were reduced, and they became wealth. They were wealth. This is known beyond the shadow of a doubt. The more livestock someone owned back then, the richer they were. And so this wealthy class emerged of just an elite, a few, and they were the first kings, basically, the Assyrians and all these people. And they were rich because they owned the most cattle, sheep, and goats. And the fastest way for them to get rich quick was to attack someone else who had a bunch of cattle, sheep, and goats. And if they won in this battle, then they would get all of that. Those livestock would become theirs. And the women would become their concubines, and the men, they would castrate them like they did the animals, and they would become their slaves. And so he had the very first word for war on this planet was the old Sanskrit word gavya, which literally means the desire for more cows. That's the first word for war. And so this culture was very bellicose, and it just spread. And by the time the historic period emerged, women are bought and sold like cattle. The boys are basically following a role model of men who are hard and tough and disconnected from their natural tenderness and gentleness and mercy. That men have to be capable of brutal, confining of big, powerful animals. I mean, it takes a lot of violence to confine and control cattle, especially. These became the most warlike because the